Hello, this is Jeff Byers, and this is ANY235, and this is Module 9. And we're going to do the upper part of your clothing and accessories. You're going to be texturing. So this video is kind of a segue into texturing your shirt or blouse or whatever your character is wearing. So the idea here is to kind of take you through what I've done. I've made some adjustments, and I'm prep work for Substance Painter. We're in the midst of texturing now, and we really need to be strategic in how we lay out our UVs or how the UVs are laid out, and those are easily fixed if you need to fix those. Things that we need to kind of remember is that, are you going to use UDEM UV tiles, or are you going to use the standard conventional UVs? It doesn't really matter how you export. You just need to make sure when you UV map, and that's in Module 8, so you need to watch those UV mapping videos. But because this isn't really showing you how to UV map, it's basically telling you how your UVs should be set up before you bring them into Substance Painter, whether you're using UDEM UV tiles or standard conventional UVs. Doesn't matter, because you're going to have to make sure your UVs are straight. What do I mean by that? Well, let's take a look at how I have my UV set up now. Okay, let's move this over here. I'm going to hit the F key, and let's see if I can move this over. There we go. So we have some room for our UV. Okay, so let's take a look at this, and I hit the F key, just kind of focus on this. Now, before the UVs were laid out kind of sideways, you really want to make sure the shells are up and down, straight up and down, making sure and it's really up to you, but I would make sure that the UVs are facing upwards, that they are up, okay, and these are down, up and down. So the idea here is making sure your shells are straight, okay. So my shells are straight, and I've got a natural break in the seam in the shirt right here on the sides. That's what I've done. And then in the back, you can see I've got a UV shell for the entire back, so I don't have any seams except for right on the side. And I would highly recommend that, because then you can put a really nice seam, clothing seam with stitching. And that's something I would highly recommend. Again, we have videos in Module 9. Please look for those, so you can add stitching, your own stitching in here. You can buy or find stitching. It's going to be hard to find free stuff, but you can go on ArtStation and find that stuff pretty cheap by just going to their marketplace. So go to ArtStation Marketplace, you can find that stuff, and just type in alpha maps. And you can use those alpha maps and bring them into Substance Painter to create your own stitching and seams and stuff like that. I got a whole library of them. I might give you a couple of those just so you can have them, and so you can play with it a little bit. But you're going to have to set up seams. So I've got a seam right here. That's a natural seam. If you look at your clothing, you need to look for that. So those are natural seams. And then, you know, the collar. I've got my collar set up. Now my hair is going to cover this part, so you're not even going to see that seam right there. So that worked out really well for me. And so I also, again, this is not a UV mapping tutorial, but I just wanted you to know how my UV map looks. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the checkerboard, and you can see that everything's flat all the way across, all the way to the back. Okay, the seam is natural, so that's okay. You're going to see a seam right here, but everything's flat across. You can see that nothing's angled. It's straight across, and that's what you're going to need your fabric to look like. And same with the sleeves. Okay, so you got the main body nice and flat, and everything's flat in here, as you can see. So keep that in mind when you're UV mapping, and if your UVs are not straight and flat, you need to go back and change that. Okay. Now this particular example, I'm going to use the standard conventional UV mapping, which means I'm just within the UV 0 to 1 with one UV texture space right here. Before I showed you UDIM tiling, it really doesn't matter which way you go. But if you do just UV map one object at a time, that's fine. I'm going to show you how to do that. And there's a particular or a specific way that you need to import your UV maps and your objects. So when you get this done, when everything's looking good, you're going to want to make sure you're in object mode, and you need to go to snapshot. Everybody knows how to do this. You're going to go ahead and save that. I've already done that. Since I am doing the standard conventional, I'll make sure that the U is 1. Now, if you're using UDIM tiles, you would type in how many UDIM tiles across you're going. And I think before I had like 12 or 14 or something like that, but I'm just going to use 1 as an example. So we're not going to be using UDIM tiles for this example, so please remember that. And so I'm going to go ahead and save that. You save that out. Make sure you tell it where you want it to go. Okay? Alright? And then when you're done, you probably want to go ahead and go File, Export Selection, and I've already done this. It needs to be OBJ, and I've already called it the shirt. I'm going to do the shirt and the pants to get you guys started, and then the rest you guys can do yourself. And then I'm going to have a video tutorial on hair. How did I tackle the hair? You're going to have to find a hair texture. That's really up to you guys. I think I'm going to go ahead and give you a sample, and feel free to use that and experiment. I'm going to give you the sample of the color map, the transparency map, and then the face I did not bring it into Substance Painter. You can find tutorials on that. What I ended up doing is the face is totally different. So what I ended up doing is finding a texture map and placing it. Now I'm going to show you both ways, but going into Photoshop and just painting. I'm so used to Photoshop painting. That's the only thing I did not really use Substance Painter for my version of the face and the skin. So that's just what I ended up with. I'll briefly discuss that. But you can make a choice of how you want to do that. You can paint directly in Substance Painter. I'm just more comfortable with the brushes in what Photoshop offers, and I'm more comfortable creating skin textures in Photoshop. I found a skin texture that I actually purchased and used for this particular example. But we're going to stick with the shirt for now, and then what we're going to do is you save it out as an OBJ. Make sure you name it something specific so you can easily find it. Put it in your scenes folder, export to selection. I've already done that. And so we're done. Now the buttons I decided to do separately, so they're not even part of the shirt. So that's all done separately. Okay? I'm not worried about the buttons. The buttons I can texture. I can even just put a material on the buttons if I wanted to, or I can put a texture on them, whatever I like to do. And then I've got the fabric in between the buttons. That's all UV mapped to as well. It's going to have its own UV. And I probably will bring these into Substance Painter. Everything but the skin. Now a lot of times I will start the skin process in Substance Painter just so it's all flat, and then add the pores and stuff like that with an alpha map in Substance Painter. It just depends on how I feel and what I want to do. But painting the actual, like, I don't know, the eyebrows and the lips, and I do all that in Photoshop. Substance Painter just there isn't enough tools, quality tools in Substance Painter isn't quite as good as what ZBrush has, and plus the brushes that I can get and use in Photoshop. That's just me. That's just what I like to do. So let's go ahead and focus on the shirt for now. Let's go through that process really quick. So you know the prep work is all done now. Now we can go into Substance Painter. Okay. Alright, so Substance Painter 2020, I believe that's what I'm using. I think I've got the latest version. So I'm going to go to File, New, and I'm going to use PBR Metallic Roughness Algorithmic, and I'm going to go ahead and find my object. So I'm going to go to Documents, my Projects, and then my Character Module 6, and my Scenes folder, and then you can see my shirt, and let's go ahead and open up that, and then we've got document resolution 4096. Always do that. And I'm going to be basically taking all of my objects in separately, every single one of them, every single piece separately, and just focus on that. I would recommend that you do that. You're going to probably keep all your objects separate when you rig your character anyway, and I would highly recommend keeping all your objects separate. So you could have your hair as one, your shirt as one, and so on and so forth. Now this is where, if you're using the UV tile workflow, you can checkmark that, but I'm not using that for this particular example. I'm using the standard conventional UV method. Okay, so I'm going to leave that off. But if you're using UDIM tiles, then you'd have to turn that on. Okay, but we're not. Okay, keep that off. And then, is there any other baked maps? Let's say you use Maya to bake some high resolution maps of wrinkles and stuff like that. Do you want to bring those in with your object? Okay, that's what it's asking you. Or maybe you created wrinkles in ZBrush and you want to bake those in. So those will be all put in here right now at this point. Okay, I don't have anything, so I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. And here's my shirt. Perfect. Now this is ready to be, you can add textures to it or sculpt on it. Okay, you can use alpha maps, right? So watch those videos that I have. So if you go in there, you got alpha maps in here that you can add detail to and bring your alpha maps in here. You can go ahead and import those into the alpha maps folder here. And it comes with a lot of cool stuff you can even play with. Okay, you might find some stitching in here. Okay, you might want to type it in, search like stitching. Okay, stitch. Let's see if that comes up. Yep, stitch generator, stitching. Nothing comes up with that, but stitch. There it is. Okay, folds and stitches. So they do have something in here. You can take that out and get that brought back up again. So, you know, watch those videos I have in Module 9 about stitching, and you can find stitching. And there's one in here that looks pretty cool. It looks like a zipper. But, you know, you would bring those in here through this. You would click on that. You would click on that and then import it in. Okay. You can watch those videos again. Right now I'm just going to take you through just texturing real quick. Texturing. And just take you through the process, and there's a lot more involved in it than just this, so I'm just going to get you started though. And I'm going to show you why the UVs are so important. Alright, so let's type in fabric in our search so we're not kind of, there we go. So we got acrylic fabric. You can highlight over that. So there's just different types of fabrics I've got here. And you have to build your own library. If there's something that you see that I have that you don't have, that's probably because I've been downloading stuff for a while now. So don't worry if you don't see something that you don't have. Okay. Alright, so let's take a look at some of these. Like this puffy fabric here. So the synthetic, I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to drag and drop it. I can drag and drop it directly on the object, or I can go up here and bring it to the layer, or I can drag it onto here. There's like several places you can drag it onto. Alright, so now you can see, I'm going to hold the Alt key and kind of move that down. You can see how all that stitching comes onto the, you can see how it works with the material, or my UV map is right here, and how it looks on the material, which is way too, it looks like it's way too big. So let's bring that scale up to where it looks like it makes sense, like that. There you go. Alright, cool. And you can see that all matches up really nicely. And I can just kind of rotate around here and see how the light shines on it. And at that point, you just have to make some decisions on if that's the fabric that you want. And you can change the parameters. All of you guys know how to use Substance Painter. If you don't, please watch the intro to Substance Painter video. But I just wanted to show you that if your UVs are laid out properly, everything is going to match up nicely and look really good. So if you have a texture that has a pattern like this does, let's go ahead and take that one out. And I'm going to add something that has a suit fabric pattern. So I'm going to click on this and just kind of drag it onto the object. And that's way too big, so let's go ahead and bring that in there. And you can see how that can really make a difference. You don't see it, you know, it's flowing with the object, right? And the seams look really good too. Okay. You can see how the collar's looking really nice. So this is like a suit fabric, and it looks really realistic because I've got the seams in the right areas. And that makes a huge difference. Now you can go in here, and if you want to add your stitching, you can go ahead and paint that directly on here. Again, those are videos that you can watch. But this is just showing you how the prep actually works really well, okay, with your objects. Alright? You can do this with the pants too as well. I don't really need to have a video on the pants. So this is just a really quick video on how to get everything set up for Substance Painter, making sure your UV maps are straight. And that's what happens when you have them straight. Everything works out really nicely. Otherwise it just will not look correct. Right? Well, have fun texturing, guys, and when you're done, if you're happy with everything, you got everything painted, you got all your details. Let's say you got a bunch of pockets in here, you added the detail of the pockets, your stitching, your buttons, your zippers, all that cool stuff you can add with your alpha maps or your normal maps, okay? So you got brushes, filters, we've got skin in here, so just, and your hard surfaces, that's your normal maps that you can import in. They've got some normal maps. I don't think they have anything that's useful for the clothing. They may, I don't know. But if they don't, you can definitely use the alpha maps for that too as well. Alright, anyway, get to know Substance Painter. As far as the texturing, this is really not a texturing tutorial. It's just basically getting you ready and set up for making sure the UV maps are properly placed and that your materials will look good when you place them on there. Okay, so that's important. So when you're all finished, then you go to File, Export Textures, and this is how you set it up for Arnold. So with Arnold, we want in here, we want it to kind of scroll up and scroll down until we find PBR metallic roughness. When that's all set up, then we make sure it's PNG, it's 8 bits. We want the size to be based on the texture set size, which is what we see here. And then in padding, we're going to go to no padding pass-through. You can experiment with other ones if you like to. I always click on that one and I always use that one. And in here you need to tell it where you want it to export the textures to. So I would suggest that you export it to your documents, Maya, and your project folder, wherever that may be. Mine is any 235 character module 6 and source images, and then you want to go ahead and select folder. So that's where I'm going to put my textures, in the source images folder. We've been taught to do that. And then when that's done, you go to Output Templates, and you need to click on Arnold AI Standard. Now, the reason why I am doing AI Standards, because I'm doing the standard conventional UVs, basically 1 UV per UDIM tile. Now, if you're doing Arnold UDIM tiles, more than one at a time, you're doing like 10 or 12, then you're going to click on Arnold Udom Legacy AI Standard. Okay, that's what you'll click on if you're using Udom tiles, and you'll click on Arnold AI Standard if you're just doing conventional. Okay, all right. With that done, I'm going to go to list of exports. This shows me everything that's going to export. Realize that we're probably never going to use the height. We're probably never going to use the emissive, and we're probably not. I think that's the only ones we're going to be using the base color. We're going to be using the metallic and the normal and the roughness. Okay. So go back to settings. You're all set up, and click on export, and then it'll basically go through all of this processing, the process part, and it tells you when it's done, and you can just click off. Okay. And then if you want to save your object and your file, then you go to File, Save As, and I would also place that right into your project. Okay, that's what I would do. And my project resides under Maya projects, and then basically I put a guy. You can see where I've started texturing my shirt. So in here, I'm going to type in texture. I can just click on that one and just go to number 2. Okay, so I'm going to save that. And so it might take, it depends on how much information you have in here. And you can see I've got a bunch of substance materials. And again, you can go to all kinds of places to find substance materials. You can just type in, do a Google search on substance materials. You got substance share, you've got substance source, and you got all kinds of other ones that are available to you. And if I remember right, there's one that I found on GameTextures.com, and that's the skin texture that I think I'm going to share with you. And if I don't, make sure you let me know. But anyway, I'm going to try to remember to get that shared with you. It wasn't a big deal to get that. So GameTextures.com is another place you can find it. There's a ton of places. You can go on ArtStation and find alpha maps, like I said. So feel free to go and do that. I'm not asking you to pay for anything, but if you want to, you sure can. And of course, I don't fault you for that. And they're not too expensive. I think some of them are like maybe from $1 to $10 is the most you'll pay for alpha maps. It really depends on you whether you want to do that or not. And I'm not going to make you, or you have to do that. Okay? You can do a lot of really cool texturing techniques with your face with Photoshop. So again, I do most of my texturing in Photoshop anyway. And sometimes I get the procedural textures set up in Substance Painter, and then I save out the maps, and then I bring the maps back into Photoshop and add the rouge, maybe makeup or whatever I want, eyeliner and all that kind of stuff in Photoshop, and it works out just fine. I'm just more comfortable in Photoshop painting that way. Alright, that's it, and once you export, you're good to go. And I'll see you guys soon in the next video.